The CIA performed a controversial experiment on cats that's still dividing people today. The 1960s can be characterized by one word: eccentric. Even if the fashion, entertainment, and fads of the time weren't considered weird then, they certainly are now. With a few obvious exceptions. By the end of the decade, ideas that were once considered silly dreams had been accomplished, from important technological advances to walking on the moon. Throughout the decade, people thought outside the box, way outside in some cases. Sometime in the 60s, the smartest people in the US decided that cats could work for the government. And the why and how behind the story are, you guessed it, downright eccentric. The why is simple. Back then, Americans wanted to get an edge over the Soviet Union in any way that they could. It was a no such thing as a dumb idea kind of time, and judging by one of their more eccentric ideas, they took that saying seriously. Details about the CIA's kookiest idea are scant, but what we know is mind-blowing. Sometime in the 60s, someone decided that a foolproof way to infiltrate the Soviets was to train cats to be spies. If you think about it, it almost makes sense. If you're a Soviet leader holding a covert meeting, who are you going to be suspicious of? The random guy with an unconvincing Russian accent? Or the skinny cat who happened to slink into the room? With this in mind, the idea started to grow. The idea was turned into Project Acoustic Kitty, and before long it was being managed by the CIA. The idea needed all the manpower it could get. As it turned out, turning cats into spies wasn't as easy as it seemed. Simply training the cats to do what they wanted wasn't going to cut it. Besides, what the CIA really wanted was for the felines to record top-secret Soviet meetings. And they couldn't do that with a bulky recording device strapped to their backs. This is where the story goes from kooky to bizarre. In order for the spy cats to record meetings undetected, they'd have to be implanted with recording equipment. For obvious reasons, this was a tall order for the scientists involved. They not only had to figure out a way to implant recording devices into the cats without impeding the cat's movement, but they also had to contend with the cat's body chemistry, the main barrier. Felines simply aren't meant to have antennas. Victor Marchetti, an assistant to the CIA's director at the time, described the implantation process as a cut-and-dry procedure, no pun intended. They slit the cat open, put batteries in him, wired him up, he described. If only it were that easy. Marchetti later described the end result of the procedure using 4 simple words. They made a monstrosity. Unfortunately, turning cats into recording devices wasn't as simple as 2 AA batteries. It required hair-thin wires, a microphone, and high-tech equipment. The number one problem scientists found themselves facing should have been expected. The cats didn't look normal after being turned into high-tech spies. Horribly, they were seemingly aware of the equipment lodged beneath their skin. The cats would try to dislodge the equipment by licking, rubbing, and even clawing at their skin. There's no information over how many animals, cats and non-cats included, died during the experimentation process, but eventually the scientists thought they'd finally succeeded. The first unsuccessful acoustic kitty, or the cat that survived surgery, had a transmitter embedded at the base of its skull. It had a tiny microphone lodged into its ear canal and an antenna woven all the way to its tail. After the first cat was implanted, they had to see how it moved in a non-controlled setting. Immediately, the CIA ran into a problem most pet owners would have been able to foresee from the beginning. Once it was in a non-controlled setting, all bets were off. The cat wandered when it got bored, searched for food, and was easily distracted by noises and movement. Luckily, more like unluckily, the scientists were able to address at least one of these issues. Another surgery, there's very little information on what it entailed, seemed to fix the cat's hunger problem. $20 million on extra operations and training later, one of the cats was ready for its first real field test, outdoors. Across the street from the CIA reconnaissance van were 2 Soviet men sitting on a bench. The only thing separating the spy cat from its mission was a busy street. And this turned out to be the biggest problem of all. The cat hopped out of the van, started across the street, and was promptly hit by a taxi. It was killed immediately, with the CIA operatives left to collect the remains in fear of the Soviets collecting the scattered equipment. It shouldn't come as a surprise that by 1967, Project Acoustic Kitty had been abandoned. As Jeffrey Richelson of the NSA Archive later said, "I'm not sure for how long after the operation the cat would have survived, even if it hadn't been run over." Though the project was seen as an utter failure at the time, the passage of time has revealed a few small but significant achievements Project Acoustic Kitty helped bring to life. For one, scientists learned that cats can, indeed, be trained to travel short distances. The project also proved that small recording devices can be successfully concealed, which helped pave the way for future tiny spy equipment. Most of all, the project taught the CIA a very important lesson. Curiosity really can kill the cat, even one trained by the CIA.